We are in for an incredible training right now. We are here with Lynnea Brumbaugh, PhD. She has been a Field of Fire member for a long, long time. Since inception, you are a founding member. And what I love about you, Lynnea, is you have these things that we don't know. And you have this special magic about you. And every time you show up and you do a training with us, I feel like there's some huge aha. So I'm super excited about what we're talking about today, which is transforming your negative emotions into fuel for your business and using the enneagram, which I'm really, really excited to learn more about. So I'm going to let you take it away. Tell us what this is about.
Thank you. First of all, hey, Sally, Carmen, and Krista. Nice to see you here. What we're going to do today is start with the reality that we tend to think that our negative emotions are a problem, right? And that is actually the problem is that we make our negative emotions into a problem, because the actual biological reality is that our emotions are they are fuel. They're like biochemical fuel in the body that when we learn to work with them, when we learn to work with this fuel skillfully, it gives us enormous personal power and the ability to harness it for whatever it is that our passion is. And in this case, that's going to be our business. So I'm going to use the Enneagram model, which is near and dear to my heart and is foundational to my business and my life, to introduce the way that I frame this. Yes, absolutely, Midori. Thank you. Feel free to post questions, comments, raise your hands. I'm used to an interactive classroom environment online. So I actually enjoy being interrupted. It feels very familiar to me. So what I'm going to do right now is just bring up, hold on just a second. I'm going to stop the share because that looked weird and not what I wanted. So I'm going to reset and hold on just a second. My slides, I don't want them to be in that weird presenter mode, because that's just, hold on. Let me refresh that.
That's what always happens when you're live.
Exactly.
It's just what happens. It's part of it, right?
It was totally ready to go. And now it's totally ready to go again. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, take 2. We can do this. And share and present. Okay, so briefly, with the Enneagram model, what is beneficial is to understand that our true living, biochemical selves are infinitely emerging and have the capacity for infinite creativity and empowerment. And yet, what all of us do to survive is kind of fold ourselves into little origami shapes, like our origami swan there, that feels alive. It feels like us, and yet it doesn't actually interact in a living way. So, those, there are 4 origami folds that I talk about in my work, which are right here. And we don't have to go into all of those because we're just going to talk about one of them, which is the intelligence centers. So the intelligence centers in the body are the body intelligence, which is associated with the brainstem, the heart intelligence, which is associated with the limbic system, and the prefrontal cortex, the head intelligence, which is associated with all of our problem-solving skills. We have all of them, and all of us have a favorite, and that's one of our first origami folds. So we're not going to talk about the favorite part so much right now. We're going to talk about how each one of us has all 3 of those intelligences and how those work emotionally. So the body intelligence like if you think about literally the body at the level of our cells is always about what's coming in and what's going out, what's me, what's not me, what's good for me, what's not good for me, right? That's what the body does. It's very much around where are the boundaries, how am I going to stay physically alive into the next moment? So our body intelligence is wired to protect our autonomy. And when our boundaries are crossed and our autonomy is threatened, the automatic biochemical emotional response is that of anger. If you don't do that, I can become dangerous. And that is how all critters express the truth that you're getting too close, you're crossing boundaries. So that is at base what anger is. And then and that's the one that we're actually going to be concentrating on today. So that's why I went into a little bit more depth. The heart center is associated with the limbic system all over the brain. And the limbic system is about our need to be seen by fellow creatures, by fellow humans as valuable. When we're tiny and little, we're adorable. Please don't eat me. Please don't hurt me. I want positive attention. And I require that if I'm going to survive into adulthood. And so the limbic system is about making sure that my entire community knows my emotional state so that we can all like rescue each other and make sure that we stay safe in the community. So when we are not seen in a positive light, the automatic emotion that comes up is around shame. Okay, so that's the framework for the heart intelligence. And then for the head intelligence, this beautiful prefrontal cortex, which is the new kid on the block in evolutionary terms, like it just came around fairly soon and it thinks it's cool stuff. I can do all the things. I can do AI. I can stand like the prefrontal cortex is pretty darn cool. And it tends to take over now because we're so entranced with it. So this is why we spend so much time thinking. So the prefrontal cortex is about our really astonishing ability to envision a future that we want to make better than today and to strategize to create that future. It's very cool. So at heart, the prefrontal cortex has the function of how can I know what I can trust to step into? What is trustable? So I need to know how to make the world safe. And as we all know, when we start thinking, we rev up our fears, and the fears can even become anxiety. So the ability to not be afraid that something right now is going to hurt us, like right now, like that's a different thing than the head creating a fear system, so that the idea is if I'm scared enough, then I will make sure not to do the stupid things. Okay, so that is that's the sort of basis for what we're talking about. And then we're not going to go into this, but there are like this is a description of how each of the 9 personality types in the enneagram, if you know of them, land in and lead with either the body center, the heart center, or the head center. So that's pretty, but we don't have to go into it right now. So let's talk about the intelligence center of the body, which is about respecting the boundaries. So you can really think of it as like an energy system that forms at that really deep DNA biological level, the intelligence that keeps our bodies running. This is the intelligence that allows us to interact in a very physical and sort of cool way with the environment. It allows us to engage at that, like the body intelligence is very much like all those strands and the ropes and the pulling and the tugging and how we play together and how we work together. And it also can make us feel like we're all like, how am I being constricted and how are other people controlling my body intelligence? I don't like that part. And the body intelligence is very much around these boundaries, what gets in, what gets out. And hold on, that one doesn't want to move forward. Hold on. Let's just go that way. Okay, so again, at the cellular level, it goes on And so when we're talking about how anger arises when we sense that our boundaries are not being honored, what it really is this powerful fuel to initiate action. So anger is one of the most challenging emotions that we deal with. And I see there are a bunch of comments right now.
Lynnea, just real quick with what we're talking about is can you give us a brief overview of what the enneagram is so we understand how this ties in?
I can. The enneagram is an ancient wisdom symbol that in the 1960s sort of met and married modern psychology, and it became this powerful tool for people to use for personal development, spiritual development. The CIA uses it, and in this case, business development. So it's this powerful model that helps us to understand what our deepest underlying motivations are for the acts that we do, and to bring this compassionately into awareness so that we can make better decisions. So it's often called a personality typing system. So that's a helpful way to think about it as well. So
thank you
for asking. And okay, so let's now that we have like a context for what anger is, I'm going to invite you, because I also always do energy work, or energy breathing work when I'm talking about how to use the enneagram even in business, in all of our lives. Okay, so what I'm going to invite you to do is stand up if you can, and if you can't, that's okay too. If you want to put your okay, so there's always going to be a little bit of movement. I'm going to invite you to rub your hands together and tune into your feet. Okay, so allow your attention to drop down to your feet. And now what I'm going to do is invite you to remember something and to think of something that makes you very angry, something that is just infuriating. And now what I'm going to ask you to do is start tapping underneath your eyes, like right in alignment with the eyes, right? This is, if you've ever done emotional freedom technique tapping, this is a tapping point. So I'm going to ask you to increase your breath. And you may notice your stomach or your gut starting to get activated. You can also, if that's like, you can also like feel, does anybody have any sense of soreness underneath the eyes? Sometimes people feel sore. So I'm going to invite you to activate the breath and keep playing with and pressing with this point as you also focus on the stomach, like literally focus on the viscera. So this is part of the stomach meridian, just so you know, if you do acupuncture. And I'm going to ask you also to focus down on your second toe. Okay, so that's a lot. So this point, your gut point, and your second toe. Now I'm going to invite you to, for me, I always start to feel an influx of like heat. How are you guys doing with that? Anybody feel, what is it that you're experiencing? I see Stacy's yawning. That's awesome. Krista, what are you experiencing? Yes, a little bit of heat. Okay. And Midori?
I'm feeling like tingling.
Tingling. Okay, awesome. Sally, anything going on? Oh, it looks like you're typing right now. Okay. So Stacy, how about you? Whew.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to invite you to do is imagine that thing that's making you really angry. So the idea is to activate the core, activate the gut intelligence by activating these meridians, the underneath the stomach. You can actually maybe touch the stomach if this isn't working for you, Stacy. Maybe like actually touch the stomach. You could also just tune into, you can like bring your toes like that to activate the toes as well. Okay, so we're activating the stomach meridian, which is part of the gut or visceral intelligence system. and allow yourself to think about the thing that makes you really mad, like really super mad. For me, there's this flaring up of energy. And then often right underneath that, right after that, I start to feel like I'm going to cry. So underneath all of that protective, activating anger, there's often a sense of helplessness underneath that feels like, oh no, somebody could possibly actually hurt me with this. So Stacy's got a yes to that. So stay with this if you can. Okay, so these are big energies. And now what we're going to do is allow ourselves to experience both the energy, whatever that energy is, whether it's helpless or expanded. Use the breath and stay with the energy as a pure energy. Even as you might also flash on the actual person or situation that's making you mad. So I'm going to invite you to flash on that angering thing and then come back and experience the pure, like owning it. This is my energy and my body.
So do you mean by pure energy how we actually feel?
How you're experiencing it physically. So is there an increase in adrenaline? Do you want to go and run? Do you want to do something with this? Do you want to punch somebody in the face? That what is behind all of that is and like biochemical fuel. There is stuff going on in the body that is impelling us to take physical action, right? So that is what anger is actually asking us to do. Okay, so now that you've done that, let's go ahead and dissipate that because that's not a very comfortable energy to stay in. So I'm going to invite you to come back, breathe, bounce a little bit. You can do some figure eights across your body. Yeah, so that held anger is very uncomfortable. However, if you have a thing to do with that energy, you can fuel that, especially the physical action, but any kind of action that you need to take. If you are in a space where you are habitually tamping down the anger, if you're in a space where you're habitually just trying to get rid of it in some way, then that's literally like it's an energy suck. It's a waste of the ways that you might be using that anger to literally construct something out of your life, especially if you've got something physical to do. So in my case, the anger after the anger at the time of my my huge midlife transformation, which included a betrayal and a house that I had not maintained. So every time that I flashed on all of the anger that I had not expressed, that I tamped down, whatever, all the stuff, I very intentionally said, this is my house from my kids, and I tapped into that to do the next physically empowering thing around the house. So that's kind of a dramatic example. I brought bookcases from the from the basement up to the top floor because I wanted them there. And I hadn't been able to do it before. So there were ways that I was reclaiming my autonomy with the energy of anger rather than thinking revenge thoughts, whatever. Like I did not want to go to those places, but I could not ignore that anger was part of my life. And so my mantra became, anger is life energy that I get to use to do what I want, to create what I want in my life. And I doubled the value of my house with sweat equity. I'm not kidding you. Yeah. So I'm going to end, like, let's have a little break now. That is how it can work. I would like to know questions, experiences, like where might I put this anger or something like that, if you're not in the middle of something that requires that kind of physical adrenaline.
Can you give us some other examples of how we can use that energy to help in a situation?
Yes. Okay. So, and this is where it actually does become helpful to know how we habitually deal with anger. So that's where all those little 9 points can become helpful. So the most helpful thing that you can do is notice, how do I normally deal with this? Because how I normally deal with it is usually semi-functional. So we created some survival system when we were tiny little creatures, and we just had to survive a big, scary grown-up world where all the grown-ups are freaking crazy, and they are. So we had to survive that. And when we have the ability to say, this is how I survived it, and so I still do this sometimes, and it may or may not be actually functional. So most of us will just tamp our anger down, to be perfectly frank. Most of us will just wish it away, like press it down, pretend like things are fine, numb out around it. And so a helpful practice is to notice, am I getting super sleepy? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I, and there's no like external reason for it. Like if I know that there's something around my boundaries that have been crossed, if I know there's something that's making me mad, step one, notice what it is that I'm doing with it. Am I tamping it down? Am I going to sleep? Am I getting active with it? Am I running it off? Like, am I dissipating it through physical activity? Notice what that is. That's step one. And step two is bring something to mind that wants to be done. Like, what is physical action that wants to happen? And then step three is, when you notice that anger, do I want to use it to take physical action rather than just go? And not that going for a run is like, going for a run can be a great way to deal with anger. I'm not trying to say that that's not effective, but is there a way in which I just want to feel better instead of using the fuel of that to address something deeper, more important, more core to what it is that like my life mission is, or something like that. Is that helpful?
I want to dive into this deeper because I think it's really, really valuable right now that we're tapping into. And I think for those of us who aren't as used to this, you know, Lynnea, you talk this all day long, right? So you understand it so well. You've been doing it for years. But that when you were telling me about this originally, what came to mind is how, for those of you who are Warriors fans, I know there's a couple of you here, Draymond Green, he gets in trouble all the time on the Warriors, right? He's just this firecracker, but you can tell when you watch him play, he's using that anger to fuel him. Same with, who's that other basketball player who's the most popular player in the world right now? He's retired. He just had a movie about himself. Oh gosh, what's his name? Anyway, Nike did it. Air Jordan. Michael Jordan. When you pissed off, exactly. When you pissed off Michael Jordan, he just let loose, and he was going to win that game no matter what. There was a fire that came out. So I think that's what you're talking about, Lynnea.
Yes.
So for those of us who are not pro athletes, unlike Sally, you know, what are other things that how are ways that we can use this anger, this frustration, this emotion to our benefit, right? To help us with our businesses, to help us break through things so we can see tangible results from that. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to dissect from this.
Right. And I want to address Majora's question, and I want to hear what Krista has to say. The key is actually feeling it purely and translating it into action. And then that action for Michael Jordan is, I'm going to win this. So you know what your action is that you want to be taking. And so you want to create practices with your, like whatever it is that works for you, that links the energy of anger to my actual goals.
Got it. Like a habit.
Like a habit. Exactly.
Create a habit.
Exactly.
Krista, did you have a question?
No, I just want, it keeps coming up for me, and it's part of my own personal anger journey, is that I think that in these conversations around anger and in a space with women, I think it's important to say that historically and even systematically, we're told not to feel anger. We're shamed for feeling anger. We're called bitches for being angry. And so I think that for me personally, I'm not projecting this onto anyone else. I think there's something that where we have to reclaim that power. And, and this is something that happened for me as a young girl. And I see women struggling with it all the time. My best friend just the other day was like, you don't need to feel angry. And I'm like, I know exactly what this is going to do for me. It's going to fuel me. But I think it's just important for us when we're going through these processes to say, I'm safe in my anger and I'm allowed to feel this. And to say that to our friends as well in this space, like, it's okay for you to be angry. Let's channel this, right? I mean, I want us as women to support each other in these places, to say, like, it's absolutely okay for you to feel this, like, and you're valid in that.
Yes. And Stacy was tracking right along with you, because in the chat, she just put, what if you grew up thinking that being angry is not okay? And almost all women, Krista, you're right on target there. And we all know this, like, we all learned, and there's a weird, crazy, angering gender divide here. So men can be angry, but nothing else. And women can be all kinds of emotions, but don't you dare get angry. It's literally insane. It's so unhealthy. It's such a cause of pain and dysfunction.
Yeah, and that in itself makes me angry.
I know. Okay, so here we are. We are now angry about the reality that we're not allowed to feel our anger.
Yeah, I just,
Yes.
I think, Stacey, to your point, I think all girls, I was told to be proper, be a proper young lady was what I was told. And I was absolutely not allowed to express my anger. So it has swung the other way, where now it's my go-to, because I know what it does for me. But I think, Lynnea, your practice of having a safe, I know my go-tos, which are like, okay, you have to work out hard, you have to walk, and then I think the mindfulness of, like, channel this. But when we're told that angry is not okay, I think what happens is that we have to care for ourselves in that space when it does come up for us, and just literally be like, I am absolutely allowed to feel this. I think it's just this internal practice, like anything else, that yes, I get to feel this, and I'm going to create space for this today, or whenever I'm going to feel it, where it's not being projected onto somebody else. But that's an internal conversation that I think that we have to have with ourselves to reclaim it
over and over and over again, until it becomes natural to go, whoa, there's anger in me, and not feel like I have to rearrange who I am because this is running through me. Yeah. And what is healthy anger versus rage? I would say that rage can be a healthy anger. The main way that that anger becomes healthy is when we utterly own it. This is my life energy. My body created this. Whoa, I'm super powerful. Like, really reveling in how angry I am, ideally, especially when we're first working with it without anybody else around, because the reality is that years and years and years of not having permission to feel anger means that it will come out sideways. So once there's that last straw on the camel's back and we erupt, or we go totally passive aggressive, And we're like, but I'm being so nice. Why is everybody angry at me? So those are opportunities for us to feel, yeah, Midwest nice, absolutely. Y'all so sweet. Bless her heart. All of those ways that we learn to smooth it out as if it's not raw, because it is raw. It is a pure, it is a fight. It is a fight for our life is what anger is. And it has enormous benefits. That mama bear energy, when we decide the boundaries are here, nobody's getting near, you know, like whatever's crucial to me, wherever my heart is, nobody's getting near this part of my vulnerability. Nobody's getting near my kids. Nobody's getting near this. When we are, nobody's going to mess with my business. Nobody's going to mess with my income. This anger can help us to know where the boundaries have been crossed in the past, and to go, no. This energy is a protective field around my squishy stuff. My squishy little helpless heart wants to be protected, and that anger is there to protect it. And it's going to do its job in some way, or else we're just going to get like really, really hurt.
Yeah, I think as well, Lynnea, for me, what happens often before I get to anger is that there's either fear or sadness, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the core of what's actually happening. And so I have like anxiety, and I'm like, why am I so anxious for so long? And then I'm like, oh, okay, first of all, I just need to own that. Like, what is it rooted in, right? Or why am I so sad about this? I need to feel those two emotions, fear or sadness. And then once I make space for that, that's when the anger usually kicks in and is like, oh no, F no, we're done with this now. And this is not about the other person. That's not about, or the situation. It's about just like getting to the next, right? Like,
I love that you
but
know this about yourself.
Oh yeah, no, there's been many years. But and self-awareness, but also because I kept going to anger so quickly, I was like, that's not the only emotion in this, right? That the basis of all things are like fear or love, right? But that sadness lives in the midst of that too, grief, betrayal, right? That it's, you know, but at the core of the anger, there is either there's grief or fear. And so I try to tap into that first, whether it's a mindful meditation, journaling, whatever I can do to be like, okay, that is what I'm actually feeling. And then I'm like, let's keep moving this.
Yes, absolutely. And by moving it, like the breathing, the movement, the feeling it, the owning it, the doing something with it, the clearing out of the old clogged drains in whatever the practices are that you do, super powerful. And Stacey, I love this, getting mad at yourself for letting your boundaries be crossed. Oh my gosh, yes. Because there's a way in which, and that's complicated. I'm glad you brought that up, Stacey, because that's super complicated. Because there's a way that we learn as kids that we don't have the ability to not like that's our survival mechanism. And so you really don't want to be mad at the little kid in you that created that survival system. And yet when it keeps doing it into adulthood, then there are all these complexities of self-blame. And then there's the super young survival system that says, oh, like, yeah, I'm just doing the best that I could. And so once the self-blame hits that, that's when we need tons of compassion, tons of consciousness practice, tons of ninja ability to move back and forth between actual anger and the blame and fears and helplessness and so on that might be underneath of it. That's why Brene Brown wrote the Atlas of the Heart. It's complex in there. There's a whole lot going on. Yeah. And the most effective forgiveness of self, Krista, is really tuning into how young we were when we created all of this. Because then we're like, oh, no, baby, you were freaking doing the best you could. What an amazing little creature you were. What amazing little creatures we were to survive the grown-up craziness. And then we can decide, I don't want to, like, I'm already part of the problem. I'm already crazy grown up. That's part of being human. But I don't want to perpetuate the craziness for all of the young, wounded people, however young or old they are. Absolutely. Yeah. Stacey?
So if you've got kids and you're trying to have them avoid having a little kid that's hurt, there's really no way gain all of it. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, do we all have kids inside our little selves inside of us that have been hurt?
Yeah.
And no matter what we do as parents, try to protect them from, there's no way of.
They've already survived birth.
But I do think, Stacey, I do think there are ways that you can help your kids in learning how to deal with it in a healthy way.
Absolutely. Yes. But you can't stop your kids suffering before it happens. What you can do is do all the things that make you the healthiest version of yourself that you can be. So whatever the unconscious stuff is that you literally can't see, that your kids are picking up all over the place, and that's why they're going crazy. When we own that, the kids will just settle down, because they aren't, like, until they're adults, they really don't. They're like, okay, whatever. What? they will shrug it off, and it won't go in as deeply the more that we do because they're so tuned into us. So, like, anchoring ourselves in all of our own really healthful practices is literally the best thing you can do for your kids. Always, always, always.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Stacey, please.
So basically do our work around our little kid so that that's the show up our version for them. So, okay.
Absolutely. And Krista,
I think it's just important. Number one, we're doing way better. The fact that you have any kind of conscientiousness and the fact that you ask the question is that you're doing way better than our parents did. I mean, that's just the natural evolution, is that we are because we're being mindful of it and we want to do better. And these conversations weren't necessarily happening 50 and 60 and 80 years ago, right? This conscientiousness. And I think at the core of it, for me, my parenting skills, first of all, I'm alone. So there's a lot going on with that, which is not a justification. It's just a fact. But I take ownership. Like I often apologize, which my parents never did. And I think that the core of it, which one of my crew of people told me once, which is like, they really just want to know that you love them, right? And if you love them and you hold them in that space, that you accept them and love them, then they're going to forgive you
all they want
for your failings,
even when they're teenagers
and the love. Yeah. They're just, I mean, they just want to know that you love them. And then it's like, you can have those intense conversations later. Like, I messed up there. Totally. I'm sorry. Therapy. What do we need? Sorry. I totally did that unconsciously.
Yeah. I love that. And that is, absolutely super powerful. And also, and I want to just bring this back now to our businesses, because there are many ways our businesses are like our kids. Like, we put a ton of resources into them. We care for them. We want them to grow and to be healthy and to become their own entities, right? And so the same kind of intense emotions that we might be putting into parenting our children, it may be helpful for if you're on that parenting journey to notice, how am I also putting this energy into my business? Are there ways in which I am like protecting it, or like, whatever those things are? That's a helpful way to become more conscious business owners, as well as more conscious parents, to notice where our emotional energies are as they relate to other humans, and then see, how am I doing that in my business? How is my relationship with money? What kind of anger, fear, anxiety relationships do I have with the energy of the flow of money itself? Those are all also super valuable.
So are you
Well,
And I
saying,
think back to the boundaries too, Lynnea, right? Like boundaries in business. I mean, you brought that up, Stacey, about boundaries and how you're kind of mad at yourself, right? And so, boundaries are so important when it comes to business, right? And healthy ones, like, being clear with yourself about what it is you want and then communicating that and being clear about that with your partners
I
or
love
clients.
that.
Well,
I love
it's just,
that.
and when you start the business, it truly feels like you feel very vulnerable because you're entering into a new relationship, even though the business is an entity or a
Yeah.
relationship. I mean, it is, and it's a relationship of who you are, not anyone else.
Yes.
total
And
reflection?
How do you?
Victoria, it looked like you had a thing to say.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering how, so when we feel that frustration or that anger in our business, right? Like we're just like, what the hell? Why did that client not book with me? Right? I gave a great presentation. They so need me. Why the hell did they not book with me? Right?
Right.
So you have that frustration. So are you saying you take that, you notice it, number one, right? You're
Notice
aware
it.
of it. Then number two, you decide, okay, what is it that is causing this anger? Is it, getting to Chris's point, is this a fear that my business is going to fail, or that I'm failing, or that I should be embarrassed and shameful, like all of that's causing this anger to come out? So maybe that's step two. But then number three is, what's the action that I'm going to take to help me overcome it and fuel my business so that I'm being, doing something positive with this energy and I'm
Yes.
seeing results.
Exactly. Yes, that's beautiful. Yes. Step one, notice it and experience it as much as possible. When you feel the energy, like our emotion, when we're overpowered by a difficult emotion, it really feels like we might die from it. Like that, it's intense. That's why breakups are so horrible. It feels as if this will kill us, and we know it won't. Like just this emotion running through us is very likely not to annihilate us in the next 10 minutes. And if we allow ourselves to deeply experience it and go, whoa, and feel it all the way until it has its natural dissipation through the body, which you can do with motions or running or like all of the things that we do, and then spend that time conversing, like, what is the message there? Oh my God, there's something that my body has a wealth of information, and it does not talk in paragraphs. It talks in instincts and sensations. And when we take the time to, like, intuitively and in all whatever the magical ways that you have to ask, what is the message here? What is this strong negative emotion actually telling me? That becomes the real fuel for, the old crappy stuff, that's not going to be very good fuel. So that goes away. And then the new realization, the new energy that comes in, that actually becomes the fuel. So going back to my house, I was perfectly aware that I was furious with my husband and my former friend. Like, I knew that was a thing that I was furious about. And every time that not every time, but most of the time, I learned to go, my anger, nope. What they did was wrong, whatever, I'll deal with that later on. This is an anger that my body created. What do I get to do with it? This is unprecedented. I have never felt this much anger in my life. What do I do with this? And what I did with it is hammer, get up on my roof, dig.
I'm getting this. Now I'm
Install
really
a
getting
floor.
Yes. Okay. So so you did something like, you're like, okay, my house is a thing that keeps me safe. You've told me this before, Lynnea. And so therefore, because I know my house is what keeps me safe, I'm going to work on it to make it even safer. I'm going to nurture it.
Yes.
And this
Yeah.
is my power. So when it
Yeah.
comes to business, it's like, God darn it,
Yes.
this person didn't book with me, or they didn't, even though I know that this would be a great program for him. And so therefore, I'm going to find a way to make sure that my business is stronger or that my message is
Yes.
stronger. And I'm going to put my energy towards that to solve
Yes.
this problem because I have this extra energy from this frustration,
Yes,
anger
exactly.
to do it.
Exactly. So
it.
clearing it out
Mhm.
and not just like wasting it, not tamping it down so I don't feel it, and not just going, I need to feel better right now, so I'm going to go do a thing that I know will get rid of this anger, and then I can pretend like it's all fine. That's a waste, because the information that you would have received from that really strong emotion is like, it's like gold. It's the genie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the other two emotions, we got 10 minutes. We can sort of, now that we've done a deep dive into the anger, which is super fuel, it doesn't make any sense that shame and fear would have any power to them, but they do. So let's go ahead and just see how that will work. Present. Okay. So here we are, ready to fire up when we just did that. So here is the heart intelligence, which has to do with the limbic system. And it's literally like, this is, I want you to see me the way I want to be seen. That is super important for our heart connection with our people. So I look at your face, Midori and Stacy and Krista and Sally, and I go, oh, can I see myself reflected well in your face? Am I doing a good job? Do you like me? We are all of us doing this right now. Zoom's a great place to do it. We're checking out other people's faces to see, are they seeing me the way I want to be seen? So it's super tender and super powerful. And so this is how we all are. Yeah. So I don't know why that does it sometimes. Okay. So sorry, I'm going to move this way. So a felt experience of shame as a pure energy, it's for me, it's even worse than anger. Shame is one of the lowest vibrating, most difficult emotions to actually experience. However, when we gain the skills to bear it, like when we get big enough so that our sense of ourself goes maybe like outside of the body, and we allow ourselves to be in a space where the emotions running through us and we are both experiencing it and watching it, which is ninja moves, like just letting you know. And I do train people to do that, by the way. But when we intensify it, we observe it as it is happening, it is an extremely powerful experience, because this is when we have, it's like the truth bomb erupting in our heart that says, no, it doesn't matter whether people are looking at me in ways that I have utter value, utter worth. No expression on anybody's face, no critical word from anybody else can actually destroy my inherent value, the inherent value of my business, the inherent value of what I have to offer other people. This is inarguable. And that is the really, like, when we go on these searches for our gold, it takes a tremendous amount of courage, because that journey through shame is really challenging. And yet, wow, the prize is that I experience my actual value. That's huge. Okay, so the prefrontal cortex. So they're just going to move on to the head now, and then we can, wrap it up talking about both of these. So the head center is about fear. What can I trust? How can I stay safe into the future? And so we have this little glitter jar in our heads, like all the thoughts, all of this, like, this is so cool. Look, I've got so many ideas, and that also they can create a great amount of anxiety when that glitter jar is just out of control. So again, this felt experience of fear as a pure energy if we are experiencing it small and constricted, it freaks us out. And this is why we like freak out. And when we experience it big, when we get big in our bodies, and again, we learn to bear it. We learn to be courageous enough to bear it long enough to observe it again as it is happening. It starts to settle. And we get to this place where we have a clearer, more quiet mind. We are attuned to our own inner guidance. We are attuned to our own awake, alert, this is what I need to do. And these thoughts are still happening, but they're happening in a field that doesn't feel like I'm a part of this, like a craziness that I can't control. And then I have no way to experience well. So when we feel it directly as an energy, it alerts that inner guidance system, which I just talked about. It fuels our ability to act in accordance with what is actually happening and not what we're freaking out about, not what we're projecting might happen in ways that are not helpful. These are reliable paths toward our own empowerment. So there we are, just a little review slide just to like in the enneagram, like as this is the basis of one of the little folds that we have to understand how these emotions work, and how each of the 9 little points on there deal with the fact that we've made one of these a favorite in a different way. And so the work that I do really does focus on always both and, always both and, always both and. So if we're using the Enneagram, we both all have access to the anger, the fear, and the shame, and the ways that those can empower us or disrupt us. And we all land on one of those points. And so we have a specific relationship with anger or fear or shame that is a deeper motivating driver. So it always both and. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Oh, that was so
happy to
awesome.
take your questions.
Lynnea, do you,
thank you.
If someone wants to work with you using the Enneagram and energy and all the, I mean, I can't even tell you how much Lynnea does, but if we're just kind of looking at this one area, is that something that they can do with you?
Absolutely. The easiest way to step in, and especially to do the energy work, is with the Mondays on Fire program, which I am just firing up again. So if anybody wants information about that, what I'm going to be setting up, like literally in the next couple of weeks, maybe in the next week actually, is a way for people to register and have one free class for the it's a half an hour of like pure energy work to activate and release and so on. And then 15 minutes at the end of that of called skills. So yeah, thank you. Ways that, and it will be on Mondays on Fire. Right now there's only one left in the quarter, and I'm going to set it up as an evergreen, whatever. It's evolving. But at the last 15 minutes, there are skills to learn to work, to learn to do, true for you body testing, all sorts of ways that we can learn to access the body's intelligence to make stronger, wiser, more conscious business decisions and life decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynnea. That was wonderful.
Thank you for such a beautiful discussion. Actually, I'm going to invite, could we just go around and ask for any takeaways that people had? It's always nice to express that in a space.
Great question.
Midori, do you have any takeaways from today?
Oh my gosh, so many. it was such an aha, because I've seen people use the energy. We use the basketball analogy, and then as you're going through it, I'm like, oh, now I so get it. And I've seen, and also from working with all of you for so long, I see you guys using it in your businesses. Krista, for sure, I've seen you use it. Lynnea, I've seen it with you. So it's just super interesting.
Thank you. I think my takeaway is that I'm a a radically emotional human in general. I've always been sensitive and feely, and I think that I just realized now that I mean, I know it's a superpower in some places, but I realize that it's a superpower in business. And I didn't realize that mine is fear. I dip into shame a little bit, but mine is fear. And that's what happened, Midori, in the very beginning, right? I was like, what did I just do? How am I going to do this? This isn't going to work. And everybody was like, you're fine, you're fine. And I was like, I'm not fine. And then I was like, and now I have clients. And so there's just more of a mindfulness now that I'm like, oh, I'm having some deep emotions. Let's anchor and channel. And I didn't realize that I was just doing it subconsciously because I was uncomfortable daily, which I think many of us do. But now I'm like, oh, okay, big feelings. Let's channel this.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So that's powerful for me to hear you say that. Thank you. Sally, do you have a takeaway?
Yes. And I apologize for my in and out today. I'm in
That's
a different
okay.
place. So, but anyway, yes, I do completely have a takeaway. So, channeling my anger, and sometimes it's a relationship thing. Sometimes it's business. It's less anger in business, but more anxiety in business. But taking that energy, and I almost feel like it's like bottling it up and using it towards something better, like to grow from that, and taking it away from the bad place that's bringing you down,
Yeah.
but helping you grow. So yes, I'm going to use.
I love that. I love that, putting it into a bottle, because it's like you're taking it out of the body, and then it just becomes like a gas. Like it becomes energy that you really can intentionally go, I wonder how I can use this. I love it.
Yes,
Stacey,
thank you.
did you have a takeaway?
So many takeaways. I just want to keep talking.
Good.
Well, I would say the anger, like the whole growing up, I think it's, as you said, as women, thinking that it's not okay to get angry and be mad. I think I hold it so much in my body, and to see that 9 peacemakers in the body are correlated somehow was pretty interesting, and it kind of makes sense. And then taking that and using it, not even in my relationships, but in my business, how they both go together. So yeah, so many takeaways. Thank you so much.
Huge. And Carmen, I'm not sure if you're here just
Carmen,
as a...
Carmen's working in the office, so she might actually be on the phone.
Okay, got it.
But Carmen, if you are available and you want to share, we'd love to hear it, but she might be.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I'm not sure whether you're here as a... Yeah, okay. So, all right. So thank you. That always makes me happy.
It was awesome. I want you to come back each quarter and share something, because every time there's some huge aha, and as women, we need conversations like this.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
Absolutely.
That I love it. This is I thank you. I would be honored.
Yes. Well,
thank you, Lynnea, for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great
Have a good day,
session.
everybody.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.